Lieutenant Commander Elena Ramirez stood alone on the cracked tarmac of the forgotten airbase, her boots echoing faintly against the hollow silence of hangars long since emptied. The sky above stretched vast and empty, a pale gray canvas that offered no hint of the life this place once held. She pulled her jacket tighter against the cold wind, eyes scanning the horizon where rusted aircraft lay abandoned, their faded insignias barely visible beneath layers of dust and neglect. Elena's orders had been clear when she arrived: hold position, maintain vigilance, await further instructions. But days had bled into nights, and no word had come. The once bustling base, a hub of strategic operations and camaraderie, now resembled a ghost town, a relic of a mission forgotten by those who had sent her here. The radio crackled with static, the silence on the other end as deafening as the emptiness around her. She walked toward the command center, its windows shattered, the interior dark except for the faint glow of a dying monitor. The screens that once displayed vital information now flickered with indecipherable codes, mirroring the confusion in her mind. She sank into the worn chair behind the desk, fingers brushing over the faded emblem emblazoned on the surface, a reminder of the legacy she had sworn to uphold. Elena's thoughts drifted back over her years of service. She had joined the fleet fresh out of the academy, eyes bright with ambition and a heart full of duty. Over time, the idealism had tempered into a steady resolve, shaped by missions that tested her mettle and losses that carved lines into her spirit. She had always believed in the mission, in the cause, in the people she served. But now, stranded here with no clear direction, that belief wavered. The isolation gnawed at her. The scattered personnel she had managed to gather were a shadow of the unit they once were. Tired faces, quiet voices, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on every interaction. Morale was a fragile thread, stretched thin by the void of purpose. Yet Elena refused to let it snap. She rose and made her way through the barren corridors, stopping at the barracks where a handful of officers sat in subdued conversation. Their eyes lifted as she entered, a flicker of hope kindling in the dim light. Elena cleared her throat, her voice steady despite the turmoil she felt inside. "We're still here," she said simply. "And as long as we are, this base means something. We have a duty, to ourselves, to those who came before us, and to whoever may come after. We can't let this place die." A young lieutenant nodded, the faintest smile breaking through his exhaustion. Others exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. Elena knew the battle was not just for resources or orders, it was for spirit, for the belief that their presence mattered. Days passed with little change. Supplies dwindled, and the hum of generators faltered. Communication lines remained dead, the outside world seemingly indifferent to their plight. Elena spent hours at the radio, fingers poised over the controls, hoping for a signal, a word, a sign. Each failure deepened the ache of abandonment. Yet, amidst the growing despair, a message came through, coded, brief, and almost lost in the static. It was from Captain Marcus Lee, a name Elena hadn't heard in years, but one that carried weight. His voice, though distorted, carried a spark of urgency and encouragement. "Ramirez, you're not alone. Take command. This base is more than a relic. It's a beacon. Breathe life into it. We're behind you." The words struck a chord deep within her. Marcus had been a mentor, a comrade in battles past, a reminder of the ideals that had brought her here. His message was a lifeline thrown into the storm of uncertainty. Elena sat back, letting the significance settle over her. This was no longer about waiting for orders. It was about forging a path forward, about reclaiming the purpose that had been stripped away. The weight of responsibility pressed down, but beneath it, a fierce determination ignited. She rose with renewed resolve, the silence of the base no longer a shroud, but a challenge. She moved through the empty halls with purpose, her footsteps echoing a new rhythm, one of command, of leadership, of hope. Outside, the wind whispered through the skeletal remains of aircraft, as if acknowledging the shift. Elena's gaze lifted to the horizon, where the first hints of dawn began to pierce the gloom. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with hardship and doubt, but she would face it head-on. This base, abandoned and forgotten by many, still held a heartbeat. And as long as she stood here, as long as she breathed, Elena Ramirez would ensure it was heard. Elena stood in the dim command center, the hum of newly restored equipment filling the air like a lifeline. The once silent monitors now flickered with data streams, a pulse of information breathing life into the dormant base. In the days since Captain Marcus Lee's coded message, she had thrown herself into action, rallying the scattered personnel into a cohesive unit. The transformation was slow, but unmistakable, a quiet resurgence against the weight of neglect. She watched as technicians worked tirelessly, patching communications systems, repurposing outdated machinery, and scavenging supplies from the abandoned hangars. The base, once a crumbling monument to forgotten wars, began to stir. The air carried a faint buzz of activity, the sound of engines tested and radios calling out across the void. It was a fragile hope, but it was hope nonetheless. In the mess hall, Elena gathered with her officers, their faces still marked by exhaustion, but now lit with determination. "We're not just holding on," she told them, her voice steady. "We're rebuilding. Every system we restore, every connection we make, brings us closer to the mission we thought was lost." Lieutenant Harris nodded, wiping grime from her hands. "Supplies are scarce, but we've managed to reroute fuel and parts from the storage base. The generators will keep running longer now." Around the table, others shared updates. A makeshift repair on the radar array, a successful test transmission to nearby units. Each small victory chipped away at the isolation, stitching together a fragile community born from resilience. Elena's leadership was the catalyst. Her presence infused the base with a renewed sense of purpose, a rallying point amid the desolation. She moved through the corridors with purposeful strides, offering encouragement, listening to concerns, and making decisions that balanced prudence with boldness. The personnel responded, their loyalty rekindled by a commander who refused to let them fade into obscurity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena stood on the observation deck, watching the runway bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The air was crisp, filled with a quiet energy that contrasted sharply with the desolation of weeks past. She felt the weight of the journey behind her, the doubts, the loneliness, the relentless fight to keep the base alive. Yet now, there was a new rhythm, a heartbeat beneath the surface. She thought of the men and women who had remained, who had answered the call not out of obligation, but out of belief. Their resilience was a testament to the human spirit, a reminder that even in the bleakest circumstances, hope could be nurtured and purpose reclaimed. A soft chime interrupted her reflection. Elena turned to see a message flashing on her console, a request for supplies from a remote outpost, a call for assistance from those who had not forgotten this place either. The base had become more than a holding pattern. It was a node in a network of survival and solidarity. She relayed the request to her officers, delegating tasks with precision. Plans were drawn to dispatch aid, to extend the reach of their renewed operations. The base was no longer an island adrift, but a beacon guiding others through uncertainty. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Elena allowed herself a moment of stillness. The journey had been arduous, marked by moments of despair and flickers of hope. She understood now that leadership was more than command. It was stewardship of a collective will, a guardian of faith in the face of abandonment. Her thoughts turned to the broader mission, to the ideals that had brought her here and the future she was helping to shape. The base's revival was not just about infrastructure or orders. It was about restoring dignity to those who served, about affirming that even forgotten places and forgotten people mattered. As the night deepened, Elena felt a steady resolve settle within her. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the foundation had been laid. Together, they had transformed neglect into action, isolation into community. She gazed once more toward the horizon, where the first stars appeared against the dark canvas of the sky. The airbase, reborn through courage and determination, stood ready to face whatever came next, a symbol not of what had been lost, but of what could be reclaimed.